Welcome to Perspectives in Peds, or PIP for short, your go-to podcast for insights into paediatric practice. From clinical approaches and emerging research to the everyday wins and challenges, we bring you OT perspectives that inform, inspire and spark conversation. Welcome back to Pipcast, everyone. I'm joined by Jackie today. It's rare that we're both on the same episode.
I know, it's kind of nice, isn't it?
Yeah, to have a little chat. But we are very grateful to have a little guest here today, Sally Davison. Welcome to Pipcast.
Thank you so much, Caitlin.
I'm going to do your bio, but I'm going to read it. Every time I do this, I'm like, I have not learnt this off the top of my head. But I'm going to introduce Sally to everyone. So Sally Davison is an occupational therapist and the owner of Launch OT, a small private practice based in South Melbourne. With over 30 years of experience, Sally works predominantly with neurodivergent children, adolescents and young adults, and critically with their families, schools and universities, taking a whole life view of what it means to support a young person to participate and thrive. Her caseload spans NDIS, Medicare and private funding and includes many clients navigating mental health challenges alongside their neurodevelopmental profiles. School can't is a particular area of clinical focus and passion. Sally brings an unusual depth of perspective to today's conversation. She holds a postgraduate qualification in Counselling and Psychotherapy, an MBA from the University of Melbourne, and has spent 2 decades running a management consulting practice focused on change management, process improvement and business development across the health sector in Australia and the UK. In short, she understands how systems work, how they change, and what gets lost when reform outspaces implementation. Sally is also a proud and active member of OTSi, which is the OT Society for Invisible Disabilities, and is deeply committed to protecting the practices and skilled allied health clinicians have built within their local communities over the years. As NDIS reform gathers pace and foundational supports are yet to be designed, she believes those allied health and OT practices aren't just worth preserving, they're an important part of the solution. Welcome, Sally. That is a good bio.
What a bio.
So much behind you. I love that.
Hope I can live up to it now.
I think you can. But we're really grateful to have you here. And I didn't actually say it when we started, but we are going to be chatting about the NDIS and just a little bit of an update on the current status. And so that's why we've asked Sally to be here with us as well, because she brings a really cool and unique perspective to the conversation.
Thanks for having me.
You're so welcome. So I guess I'm going to kickstart. Both of you have seen the NDIS be built and evolve over the past X amount of years. Between the two of you, what are you actually seeing on the ground that made this conversation feel urgent?
Well, it feels urgent because the reforms are coming at us. In fact, today is the day that we're waiting to hear the response from the inquiry. So that's going to be a really sort of watershed moment, I think, for the NDIS and also for occupational therapists working in the sector. It feels urgent for clinicians. It feels urgent for families. There's a level of stress and uncertainty surrounding all of that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think we're just starting to see, or I think the big thing for us is that we're seeing all these things that don't seem to align with the dates that we've been told either. You know, we sort of get told we're going to have this time to prepare and nothing will change until A, B and C dates, but we know that that hasn't actually been accurate either, just in terms of it's feeling more and more urgent because we are seeing every day with the clients we support the effects on them and not just the practicalities of their NDIS plan, whether it's them not being able to get access or taking an obscene amount of time to get access, even if they're eligible, but also the process to actually have their plan looked at or just when they're getting new plans that they're pretty pathetic plans. So that's something that we're starting to see, which is not anything official, but we know it's happening. So I think that in itself is causing a lot of stress and worry in our clients. Are you seeing the same thing in your caseload?
Definitely. And also plan periods are having an impact. It's tricky for families to manage and for therapists. Yeah. That's really tricky. It's going to get more and more and more challenging too, I think. I agree that the timelines haven't been what we have expected, and the changes are happening well before the legislation's even passed. We're seeing that a lot.
Also short timelines for the families in terms of their being pressured to produce things really quickly.
Yeah.
So, we're getting calls for really urgent things,
Yeah.
which is causing a lot of stress and anxiety in our families and our therapists as well.
Well, that's the thing, isn't it? It's one thing to put the stress on the family and they're like, shit, I've got to get all this evidence together. Then they ask their therapist and their therapist is fully backlogged with 12 other reports and fully booked and that kind of thing. So actually getting it to, I'm assuming most therapists would have some kind of process around their report turnaround time and that kind of thing, but that never seems to line up with the timeline that the NDIS gives the family as well, which is really hard because then we have to have those hard conversations around, I can do this report, but can I get it to you by the time that the NDIS has said we need this by this date? It's unlikely. Sally, you have an MBA and decades of change management experience in health. So when you're looking at what's happening with the NDIS right now, as a clinician, but also as someone who understands how systems reform actually works, what do you see as obvious blind spots of major problems here?
Where do you start?
That is a big question. Sorry. I asked it so casually as well.
Yeah. What are just some blind spots?
I mean,
Just a couple.
where do you
Just a
start?
couple.
Look, I just think overall the NDIS, I feel, are just focused on the trees and not the forest. They're sort of, the blinkers are on about the budget and the costs and, the trees. But actually there's going to be massive downstream flow-on effects within the system that they haven't really factored in to the reforms, in my view. I mean, I was just thinking about this before and, the ecosystem around the child, imagine there's the child's in the middle of a spider web of supports. There's the school and there's the mental health services and there's health services in general and then there's the NDIS and disability services and all of those things that, support a child. One of those gets massively ripped. It affects everything and everyone around that. And I particularly feel that for mothers.
Yeah.
When plans are cut and have been, or support work hours, therapy hours, the impacts are huge.
Yeah.
So I think from a systems perspective, it does feel a little bit like there's massive gaps in that type of thinking. And the blinkers are really just on about costs and budget.
They seem to forget that they're human beings in the centre there. And in our case, we're talking about little human beings that have their whole life ahead of them.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah.
And the quick fixes that are so sort of appealing to a government or a treasurer, they might not be safe fixes or fixes that honour best practice or, fairness or rights. But that's what makes it feel hard too.
Yeah.
I think some of the blind spots as well just are around internal operating systems within the current NDIS and that we can understand the tension there with admitting that that's where things potentially need to be fixed and invested because that admits, major system failure really, which obviously looks awful in an election.
Yeah.
So finding other ways to cut costs that don't point to internal issues in terms of costs at the ART or the AAT now, or costs, in terms of plan reviews and costs of lawyers and costs of all the ridiculous reports and all of those kinds of things, those kinds of costs, if they were to look at saving it there, it would kind of need some internal reflection and that's also costly in other ways. So there's a real issue there when it comes to gaps. So we don't want to get too tangential. We want today to be really practical. And Sally and I were like, we're not going to just, shit can this.
No, you can't. But you make a really good point.
Yeah.
And those fixes are not quick.
No.
So let's go for their view is let's go for the quick ones because then we can show scoreboard results.
That's right.
And the other real opportunities for looking at cost management are longer term and should have been started years ago, obviously. For example, following up on complaints, doing something about them, the quality and safeguards, looking at, they've had the narrative around fraud for years. So, and rorting, provider complaints have been plentiful and they've been made by other providers, but where have the follow-up been? Where, I just think you need to look at that stuff before you cut little people's plans and supports.
Yeah. And I think that's where that systems thinking is really valuable, because we're looking at, yes, little people, and that's our passion, but actually those little people are part of that bigger ecosystem, and all the stuff downstream does affect the government, and they know it vaguely, but it's like, I guess by then they think, all that flow on, I guess, will just be another problem we'll sort out later.
That's 20 years away.
Like the increased, hospitalizations, or like you said, the mums who, the workforce, just around the mums who will not be able to contribute to the economy through
and unfortunately it
employment.
often is mums.
That's right.
Yeah. So, and that's really what I mean by not seeing the forest from the trees is, the government also has KPIs around female workforce participation. Okay, but that's over there. Oh, do those two policies actually align?
Actually align?
Yeah, people aren't talking to people, are they?
No,
It's
I think it's quite rare these days that at least in kind of, if I think about my caseload, if one of my clients has an NDIS plan, it's often that the family also have additional children in their family that may also have NDIS plans or are looking to apply for the NDIS. They also have their own support needs. So if you think about, like mothers and caregivers in terms of how that looks, it's not just one child, it's often multiple children that they're navigating that for, multiple plans that they're following along with.
And also don't forget the female workforce in the support work sector and in the allied health sector, women and mothers, probably like many people in this practice, they can work flexibly and the sole traders can work flexibly and build businesses where they can continue to do their caring responsibilities as well as offer, high quality therapy services to other families.
Dare I say it, teachers and nurses will also be affected by this.
Yes, they
the
will.
teachers, we know the kids that we support, and you as well with all your school can't clientele, and we see a lot of those kids too, that teachers are burning out because they don't have the support to support those kinds of kids as well. So, teachers are having a really tough time and being lumped with more and more responsibilities to support kids who are disabled or have developmental delays or neurodivergency. And then we've got all the nurses that have to deal with all the mental health backlash in terms of just the frontline, the strain on primary health due to disability is also massive. And I've got friends who are nurses who are just, feeling completely burnt out by just the clients that are stuck in the wards at the moment that can't be discharged because they don't have funding for accommodation, or their parents we can't take them home. So it's a genuine issue. And I think that when we're talking about what good change management would look like in terms of consultation and rollout and feedback, to bring it back to what you said before, there's just no time and money to actually do those things well. So I think that's the biggest blind spot, is that tension between what it would actually take to do it well and what's happening are not aligned at all.
No.
What are the most concerning patterns you're both seeing in how plans and eligibility are being handled right now? I know that we mentioned earlier, just the significant time in terms of eligibility, but what other concerning patterns are you seeing?
I think the cold call checks, the check-ins, in inverted commas, is something
which
that
families don't seem to even know are a thing.
And they're getting these calls and they're saying, I had a chat to the NDIS. They were just calling to check in, and then the next thing they're getting correspondence about that having been their review, and or just the comms around. We're seeing a lot of plan rollovers, which families at the time are relieved about, but then we know means nothing. No, 2 months later, then they're getting a full eligibility reassessment. So the rollovers, it's just the the comms around that. And we'll touch on that a bit later in terms of some tips for practitioners to be aware of these things, because families aren't. It's all kind of smoke and mirrors at the moment, and that can be really hard.
I think the plan rollovers are particularly hard in the pediatric space when I've had clients where they've had their plan rolled over 4 or 5 years in a row. And we're talking about, a 5-year-old versus a 10-year-old and how those needs have significantly shifted over those years. And like you said, sometimes families are relieved because they're like, nah, the funding that we've got is working for us. But if something has shifted and they haven't had the opportunity to communicate that and request change and that kind of thing, it doesn't allow families to be accessing the right supports sometimes as well.
That's right. And also, a lot of this is all just premature because there's no other services out there, and it's not very trauma informed in their approach. And if you've got a family with a plan that's not meeting their needs and they go for a plan review, you can often end up in a worse situation. So, that's why people are grateful for the rollover.
Yes.
But that's only if you've got a good plan.
Yes, if you're happy with it.
And a lot of recent plans have been really low, even in the first year, because they say, "I'll go and get an assessment." Yeah. And so you're really caught between a rock and a hard place. And that's just an indication of how the quick fixes are coming in now already.
Yeah. It's really anxiety provoking for families who are thinking, do I roll the dice to get what I need or just accept what I've got and manage, because we risk getting even less. And that is that.
Just handle the stress that comes with.
Yep. That's what's happening.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I think also with that, just the flow on for what services we can provide, to bring it back to that trauma-informed piece, that, if they're getting really small amounts of funding, how are we picking and choosing where we intervene? What's going to matter the most? Is it that we work with, transitioning to school or working with the school because that's a big piece of the puzzle? Or is it that we are looking at capacity building or community access, or where are we injecting our time and energy when you have to choose? And that's a really hard thing to navigate as well.
It is, especially when you've got plan periods. As well, because that might not align with when the money is available. And I think I've got this right, but I think that in the future plan period, any money that's left over will not roll over.
Right.
From period to period. I think that.
Okay.
I think that might be right.
That checks out, doesn't it?
Yeah. That's how you control costs. But, like we used to be able to save a little bit and go, oh, okay, well, we've got an exam period, or you're about to start year 7, so let's save a bit. That might not work.
It's really complicated on a logistical level. Like I know for us, we're very diligent. We have a, substantial admin team and a very competent practice manager, and we have systems in place to make sure that our schedule support's always done. They're done as per the plan periods. And even we are having situations where, just because of backlog and multiple claims and things, that sessions are just going unpaid for because, and maybe it's only 1 or 2, but that's hundreds of dollars of income for practices as well, that they're just writing off as needing to provide that session, because putting it onto the family in some situations is pretty much impossible. The family just doesn't have it. So, you've got to go finding that balance between running a business and going down the debt collection route and all of that kind of thing.
I've had that too.
It's horrible.
Yeah. And it's not from lack of systems or processes. It's so chaotic. These families are also in a lot of chaos in managing daily life. And, suddenly they find a psychologist and, they decide to start with that psychologist, and you don't know that someone else is also drawing from that bucket.
They've been on that wait list for 9 months. And
and then it gets to the end and you get notification back from the plan manager of insufficient funds, and you're like, oh shit.
Or the self-managed.
That's right.
A lot of mine are self-managed, and it's hard. It's hard for families to navigate all of that.
Absolutely. I'd love to know your thoughts. This is a bit of a opinion question, I guess.
Oh, gosh.
Are clinicians inadvertently making things worse by writing reports that only meet what the NDIS is asking for? So, for example, progress reports, but don't clearly articulate functional impact and eligibility, and what does a strong report actually need to do right now when there aren't actually clear guidelines for that?
Well, that's a big one.
Yeah. Look, my feeling about that is that we can't blame the therapists and OTs for writing reports that have had, shifting sands, every month for something else, or that there's an ART um, uh, announcement, recommendations from a planner, or, in our sort of peer group, Facebook groups, you hear stories and you go, oh, well, I don't normally do that. Maybe I should do that. But then others say, oh, I do that all the time. It makes no difference. So we can't really, I think it's not something that we should feel that we've contributed to. I think that the NDIS is going to do what the NDIS is going to do regarding reports, and we know that the support needs assessments are coming in anyway. And so a lot of these things are actually a little bit moot now.
Yeah.
But I know from my work with OTSi and also in the NDIS community of practice, there's been multiple attempts over many, many years to try and get the NDIS to work with us and, to listen to the recommendations of OTs. This is the kind of report that we should be doing or could be doing, and here's a template, and, help us to help you.
Yeah, yeah.
So that's why I don't think we've inadvertently done anything.
We're doing what we can with the knowledge that we have.
Feeling around in the dark in lots of ways.
Yeah.
But all I think you can say is that you just lean into best practice. All the time. At OTSi, we've got a clinical guideline that's available for the current state of functional capacity assessments and progress notes.
I know
progress
we've
reports.
looked at that. Yeah, we've informed, and we've also sought supervision with other practices that we know do a lot of NDIS work as well. And even then the opinions vary.
Yeah.
But you've just got to, that is your clinical reasoning. You've got to just
lean into this.
Into what you know. And when you notice things aren't working, you've got to change it up. And that's kind of the best we can do.
Yeah.
So like with the shifting sands, that's like the best we can do. But I know there's certain things that we just feel are really outwardly being weaponized, like we as OTs and I guess other clinicians as well, we really try to look at the whole child and we understand the impact of the whole child and the family. But we're so nervous. Our
brains work.
I had an OT yesterday ask me, like this client, in terms of their RCADs, and do I include things around, their anxiety and depression? And I'm like, all the information that we have been told, through the Facebook groups and things is like, just stick to the eligible disability, because that will just be weaponized as mental health, and they'll cut the plan and say, go to Medicare for that.
Yeah.
So in what world does that, not paint part of the picture of the child? So that's the kind of stuff that clinicians are really struggling with at the moment. Like, what am I almost leaving out because history tells me that has been, weaponized before. So it's that fine line between just sticking to the disability and using our clinical reasoning and trying to link it all back to that wherever we can, and being careful with our language and those kinds of things, but not taking on the full responsibility, knowing we are kind of a bit stabbing in the dark, for lack of a better description.
That's exactly right, Jackie.
Sally, you, I know that I mentioned in your bio that school can't is a particular clinical passion of yours, and a significant portion of your caseload involves school can't. It sits at this complicated intersection of education, mental health, neurodivergence, and then NDIS as well. So when you think about the clients that you work with, at least, what's happening to these young people right now in the context of these reforms?
Well, what's happening is there's a lot of uncertainty in families, and I think that they are at risk if they can't afford private OT, because foundational services, not that we know what they look like for anyone over 9 or over 8.
Or under 9.
Well, yeah. We don't know what thriving kids look like either. But we've got a clue about thriving kids, and that is that it's going to be based in an educational setting somehow, somewhere. School can't kids, that's irrelevant.
Yep.
So they don't even have that.
Unhelpful. Yeah.
Yeah, unhelpful. And so the type of work that I do, and you guys would do, I'm sure, it's very family-centered work. It's home-based. It's understanding the family system and the, very bespoke nature of the approach and the interventions around that child. And that's the thing that makes a difference. You know, what's happening at home, what's happening at nighttime, what's sleep doing, what's the morning routine, what are the interests, what are the, like really being a detective around why this person is having so much trouble participating in school. And also with that context and knowledge, being able to help the target school to prepare for that and accommodate for it. That's really intense work and can be incredibly powerful and effective as well. So, yeah, I feel for those families, and there are more of them. I would say that area of need is growing. And just being aware of alternative schools and alternative ways of accessing learning. But, OTs are so uniquely well placed to deal with those functional capacity issues. So, and that's why I love the work, and I've got some, fantastic outcomes with people, and they're life-changing for those people. So, and the NDIS has enabled that. Yeah. That work. The NDIS has enabled that work.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I think that's why it's so disappointing for us, I think, to be in that space, because we know that obviously there needs to be, there needs to be reform. I think we can all agree on that, but it also hasn't had its full legs to sort of, like those first kids that, started on the NDIS haven't actually even become adults. Like we don't even know.
Sounds premature. Doesn't it?
We don't know. You're not going to be able to see the impact on the kids that we've supported to re-enter school or access further education or access the workforce, and that those people economically as well as on a family systems level, we haven't actually seen the full maturity of those outcomes yet, which is a real shame for us that have been working with families for a long time, and that data won't be properly analysed or really understood. Well,
that's the other thing about data. Like, who's asking us about our outcomes?
Not a soul.
How can we demonstrate these? Like,
Yeah. That's something that, I feel really passionate about.
Me too.
Wish, we almost like if it wasn't confidentiality issues, we'd probably just be signposting it publicly so people could access it, because.
Well, I do signpost it when I meet with politicians.
Yeah.
Don't worry.
That's right.
Like, they need to know. Did you know this?
Yeah. They
do you understand this?
Yeah. No. So
tend to.
Yeah. That's right. It's like, it's why those individual stories matter so much, because those individual stories are a tree in a forest.
Yes.
And I think that, we need to be able to create the landscape. Look at us going with this analogy.
I was just going to love an analogy on this podcast.
But I was also thinking, Jackie, if the world had have been in a different place economically, NDIS may not even be under reform pressure right now. There's austerity measures everywhere you look.
That's right.
And so, it's a shame, the timing.
Yeah.
Because I think you're right. NDIS has had 11 years or whatever it is, but still, there's a long lag time to be able to see the real benefit of that. And it does feel a little bit premature. But again, governments have to make choices, and this is a choice.
Yeah.
They have to choose what the priorities are in their budget, and they've chosen to cut the NDIS, or they're trying to. Well, whether the legislation gets passed or not, we'll know in the next couple of weeks. But that's what it feels like.
Yeah. From both of you, what is your honest clinical opinion on the direction of these reforms? And is there anything the government's actually getting right, even if the execution is a little bit of a problem?
Well, I think that there is a need for foundational services. I will say that.
Yeah.
I think that, this equity lens needs to be applied, because there are some families that don't get on the NDIS. So there needs to be access to services for those families. So I would say that.
Yeah.
Oh, it's a tricky one. I think in terms of, I guess, further to what Sally said, I think there needs to be a bit more diversity in terms of services available, in terms of that the NDIS is a little bit kind of became a bit of a catch-all.
Yep.
And that meant that, all the kids, all the school supports were being funded by the NDIS and all the shortfall of other sectors kind of got picked up by the NDIS because it was all that was there. So I think that picking that up again or finding other ways to improve multiple services around the kid, I think is obviously a positive.
Yep.
I think long term, if there was better oversight, and I know that's not part of the immediate reform, but I think that we know a majority of the allied health providers I know are, doing a really damn good job.
Yeah.
And there's obviously bad apples. But even then, I don't think they really exist in allied health. And I think the oversight.
It attracts a certain kind of person, doesn't it?
Yeah, that's right. And, we didn't go into it or even see the opportunity for the NDIS and be like, oh, this is how I'm going to make a quick buck.
Yeah.
No one's making a quick buck in allied health. But I think there are sectors, a lot in the home mods, and there's a lot of trades, and there's very little oversight and a lot of money being spent that probably doesn't have the auditing required.
Like real estate,
Yes.
for
Yes.
instance.
Yep.
All of that whole area.
Yeah, and they're trying to bring it in slowly, like, all the, things looking into SIL, and we don't do any of that. But
No, neither do I.
yeah, but I know there's a lot of work slowly over time being done in that. But again, it's like sweeping things to kind of fix it quickly.
Yeah.
So, I know this is about what's being, what's kind of, I guess we're feeling optimistic about. But I think, access to better services is always going to be a good thing. It's just how it's done that, matters.
Yeah. Let's talk a little bit about OTSi, Sally.
Thank you.
So OTSi has been doing some really important work in this space. Can you tell us, I guess we've said it multiple times now, but what OTSi is, what it stands for, and how clinicians can actually get involved or plug in right now?
Okay, so I'm going to read this from the website because I want to make sure that I'm getting this right for my OTSi crew. So it's Occupational Therapy Society is a national society whose purpose is to enable occupational therapists who work alongside people with invisible disabilities to reduce barriers to full participation in our world. Our focus is on ensuring access to resources, opportunities and supports for people of all ages with invisible disabilities, including access to OT. So OTSi has a strong voice in systemic advocacy and policy direction, as well as enabling individuals to build better lives. So what does that mean? It means that we have a lot of partnerships. Yep. So OTSi is a member of Mental Health Australia. It's a member of the Transforming Australia's Mental Health Service Systems. It has a board with lived experience of invisible disability, and this includes children, by the way.
Hey.
Yeah, yep. We do joint conference presentations with lived experience. We run roundtables with other organisations. We, in the last 18 months, have written, I can't even remember the number, but I think it's like 40 submissions or papers in the last couple of years.
Wow.
Like it's
and
prolific.
We're not talking little letters
No,
to local
no,
members.
not
We're
single
talking
pages.
No, we are
like
talking
serious submissions.
Serious submissions.
And I have to say a huge thank you to Carolyn and Muriel, who are co-founders along with Bianca, because Carolyn and Muriel are just so prolific with their work. It's quite impressive. But we've also appeared at 3 Senate inquiries, which has been really amazing opportunity. We're also we cover a whole range of topics. Like invisible disability is quite broad.
Yeah.
So there's the mental health space, there's the neurodivergence, there's pain, the Thriving Kids inquiry, foundational supports, like Origin models of care, that whole mental health space, the NDIS bill, obviously, primary health network submissions, administration of the NDIS. We've actually been nominated for an allied health award
Ooh.
this year.
Yeah.
I don't know if you knew
Well
that.
done, OTSi. No, I did not know.
Congratulations.
Yeah, so that's really cool as a finalist for the I think it's like collaborations and partnerships
cool.
category.
Wow.
So yay to us.
Yeah, well, very well
Amazing.
deserved.
Yeah.
Sounds
Oh,
like.
thank you. Thank you. So yeah, it's how can OTs get involved? Well, the first thing is to really seriously consider becoming a member of OTSi because a lot of the work that we do is voluntary, but every member gets a lot of benefits for very little cost. So it costs the same as a cup of coffee per week. It's $25 a month and that's $300 a year. And for that, you get free monthly peer support meetings on a Friday afternoon. We made it 4:00 on a Friday. So there's wine, there's tea, there's whatever you want. It's
Whatever
all
you want
online.
to put in your cup.
Yep. Where we give an NDIS update and sort of policy and advocacy chat, which is recorded. And then the rest of the session is the OTs just bring what's going on for them and we sort of problem solve together. It's actually really fun and really valuable. You don't have to come every month, but, people come and go.
Pop in.
You also get the toolkit, which is actually very valuable, and the templates that come with that, and that's free. And webinars are often free as well throughout the year, or a very small cost if there's a big event with international speakers or a specific sort of event based around an issue. What else do you get? You get a newsletter, which Carolyn puts out. Amazing newsletter, just jam-packed full of stuff to know what we're up to. There's also a donate button, just putting that out there if anyone wants to donate.
Honestly, though, I like as an OTSi member, I think it's also just really helpful for people to know if you don't know what to do in this space or you actually just help OTSi to do it. That's like a really if you're someone that just is time poor or doesn't have the knowledge or the expertise or you just don't want to. And you can support and throw some money at it instead.
Yeah, the people that are able to.
And
do
it's just
that.
so appreciated.
Yeah.
Because there's a lot of work that gets done on a voluntary basis, as you can imagine.
Yeah. Other clinicians, I know, like, because we just don't have OTs that listen, can they donate as well? They
Yeah, definitely. There's a donate button on the membership page.
Because the work that OTSi does benefits all of allied health. It's the whole sector. It's our clients. So yes, they are the OT society because they're a group of wonderful OTs, but the work they do is sector wide. So if you have capacity to donate, please do.
Thank you. And so the website is otsi.net.au.
We'll put that in the show notes as well.
I just wanted to also say that there's something coming up on Friday, September the 4th at 11:00, and it's an event which is going to unpack what's going on today and what's going on with the bill.
So for listeners' information, today is the 14th of August because this won't come out on the 14th of August.
Right, yeah.
But we were actually saying earlier that we'll put in the show notes as well when we do post this episode, like maybe a little bit of a written statement of the update as well. But we'll get it out before the September 4th date.
Hopefully. That'd be good.
Be.
Because that toolkit that I talked about, the assessment guidelines and the templates, that'll all be updated in time for that.
Great.
With all the new up-to-date information. So, if you can come, that'd be good.
Can I also ask as well, Sally, earlier in the episode you mentioned the I think you said the guidelines that OTSi had for FCAs. Is that part of the membership?
Yeah,
or is that
all free?
Okay, great. Because I just know someone will ask about it. Because it sounds like a good resource.
Yeah, it is. It's an amazing resource, and it's actually being updated as based on whatever happens today and with the new bill. So it'll all be hot off the press.
So I guess before we look to wrap up this episode, because we always love to go from a practical lens as well, and given the reform, practically speaking, what can clinicians be doing right now?
Wow, taking a breath would be a good
Centering
start.
yourself.
Yep. Keeping up to date.
Yep.
So, being involved in the Facebook group, coming to the OTSi update on once we've got the outcome of this bill amendment and what it means. But also being aware, I think, of other supports that are around. If you find yourself with clients whose plans are like a skeleton of what they were, what are the other options that are around, and just being familiar with those. And that's another thing that OTSi is going to be doing for our members is, helping people to
navigate that. Yeah.
Yeah. And, understanding the models that might work under a new sort of restricted funding regime. I think that there needs to be obviously a mindset shift in terms of your service delivery approaches and thinking more about how can, like you were saying before, Jackie, about basically making choices about priorities, about, what do you work on with this limited money and how do you do that? And, whether there's more coaching and collaboration and upskilling, how Medicare can be used, which item numbers, how do you run a session that's, 30 minutes.
Yeah.
And also I think it's going to be really important to be able to demonstrate outcomes and be able to measure them and show what you are achieving. I think that's going to be increasingly important.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point. I think thinking about strapping in, I suppose.
Yeah.
In terms of just understanding that you're going to be walking alongside a family in a more complex path, I suppose, and expecting that there might be lengthy, I guess, legal battles for some, in terms of just there's going to be plans that are cut and then there's going to be, a review put in and then that's going to take a long time and helping the family to navigate those lull periods. And, I think understanding that. So being across it, knowledge as the clinician is power, but it's also skill in this space. Like that's something you can offer is just being up to date and knowing things.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And just on that, I think that there will not be any reviews going forward.
I have heard that you're only allowed to ask for another
support needs assessment.
Yeah.
So these decisions aren't actually reviewable.
No.
So it's going to be a lot for the OT to understand and then be able to explain to family.
Well, that's the thing because they'll still come to you and
they'll say, well, what? No, can we fix this? And you're going to go, well, actually, they've changed the law.
Yeah, it's actually not my decision.
Yeah, and also that whole sort of legal thing, the ART will not be what we're used to. That'll be changing too if this legislation passes. Okay. So, yeah, it's a real mindset shift.
Yeah. So I think, staying up to date is honestly the practical thing you can do because you're just going to need that information. I think in terms of your reporting and things in the short term as well, coming back to, just doing best practice. I know there's a lot of templates out there. I know that Claire Batkin has one, OTSi has one. I know that Verve has things that you can access as well. And just thinking about what actually do I need to communicate? How do I do it succinctly? What evidence is relevant? But understanding that eligibility is constantly being questioned.
Yeah.
So actually speaking their language, being clear, but also just saying, the child's permanent disability is this and the functional impacts of this are with your evidence, your outcomes.
Here are the risks.
The risks, being clear in your risks, being clear in your consequences and I guess structuring your reports in a way that, really puts in front of the decision makers in a very clear way, I think is really important. And don't be afraid to adapt your templates over time. I think that's something really practical that people can do. I think being honest with the families about what 100%. You can and can't influence. And I know for us, we have some tricky conversations when support coordinators or planners are saying, just get this, quick letter or an email from your OT and, so knowing why you can't do that and how that is likely to be detrimental and really sticking to your scope and best practice and not getting pushed to do things that you're not comfortable with or that doesn't sit right with you, because everybody, we have to assume, is trying to do the best job they can, and that there's gaps in knowledge everywhere. So we just need to stick to what we know and do it well, I think is a really practical thing.
Absolutely right. And I think the best practice, leaning into that and knowing your value, knowing your community, knowing what their needs are, will actually help you to be more sustainable in the future as well, and look for opportunities where foundational supports are developing, and being a sort of exemplar provider of high quality allied health services will help you if you've got all those things. You might be doing some possibly contracting to an NGO or to a school or something, and those things, they're going to want to see those. Yeah. They're going to want to ask for them.
Yep.
Yeah.
So, I totally agree with that, Jackie.
Yeah. I think also if we can plug our Victorian Allied Health Provider Group as well.
Absolutely. We've done podcast. What?
So, and there's other state-based groups as well that are building. I know New South Wales has one, South Australia is about to, Queensland has one. So if you work in the early intervention space, it would be helpful to follow and or contribute to some of the work that they're trying to do in those spaces as well, in the foundation early intervention, thriving kids space as well. So
I know that there's so many clinicians that are just sitting in that uncertain angst at the moment. And I think if they, one single person can't necessarily make big shifts, but when we have, these groups of really, passionate people working on it, if we can contribute to that in some way, it all makes a huge difference, doesn't it?
Agreed.
Yeah.
Yep.
Well, thank you, Sally. We have
my pleasure.
Yeah, we've really enjoyed this chat, and I do think it has been really valuable to any listeners, OT or not. We will put all those links in our show notes, and hopefully by the time that this episode comes out, we have a little bit of an update that we can provide listeners as well. And if you've got any further questions about OTSi, hit up the links in the show notes, and we hope to have you back one day, Sally.
Love to. Thanks for having me.
Hopefully we haven't scared you away.
No. It was great.
Thanks, Sally.
All right, well,
and thanks
Sally.
to OTSi for all the work they do as well.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
And I'll chat to you soon, Jack.
Thank you.
Bye.
See you later. Before we go, if you are a clinician looking for more support between episodes, KidLink has a range of services designed to build your clinical knowledge and confidence. KidLink Education is home to our on-demand, high-quality professional learning you can apply straight away into your practice. If you want access to monthly PD, group supervision, and our community of like-minded OTs to learn from and connect with, check out OT-Link. We also offer clinical supervision, which is designed to support your growth across professional, clinical, organisational, and personal goals, wherever you are in your career. If you enjoyed this episode, please hit like, subscribe, and follow. It genuinely helps more clinicians find the show, which means a bigger community and more of us doing what we love. Thanks for listening.